So we got Vasily Lomachenko and Gervonta Davis. It's in the works apparently, guys. It seems like that's the fight that we're gonna get next, and they're targeting November or December, which is pretty soon if you think about Tank. Take into consideration the fact that Tank has been off for more than a year since the Ryan Garcia fight. Obviously, getting that really good win against Frank Martin. Looking really sharp in there. Probably the best performance we've seen of him, but at the same time, I don't think that's the best version of Tank we're ever going to see. I think that, the best performances from Tank have to be brought out of him. I think that Tank fights to his level of opposition. Like, he does whatever he does to his opponent depends on, the style of his opponent, like any other fighter. But Tank is different to the extent of he can really fight you however he wants. A lot of fighters, they're limited in terms of what they can do, what's in the arsenal, certain tools that they can take out. But Tank seems like he can do whatever he wants. He could wait, start on the back foot a little bit if he wants to, start off slow and download that information. But, against Frank Martin, he did what, everybody said that he shouldn't start slow. He shouldn't download the information and give up early rounds. He shouldn't, and he can't against a guy like Frank Martin. And he said, okay, maybe you guys are right. And then but he did it in such a way that was impressive. And a lot of people said that Shakur, obviously is a tough fight for Tank as well. And yeah, it is a tough fight for Tank. But I also think about it like a lot of people like to talk about how against Shakur Stevenson, you can't give away the first 5 or 6 rounds. But I would argue that against Frank Martin, Tank was winning that fight 4-3 in my opinion. So I didn't even see that. If Tank's walking forward, I see a very difficult fight for Shakur Stevenson, but obviously we're getting the Lomachenko fight first, so let's dig a little bit deeper into that fight, because that's what we're gonna see first ultimately. If I had to guess, it's gonna go Vasily Lomachenko, and then it's gonna go to Shakur Stevenson, and once Tank takes care of all that, then he's going to move up to 140. I don't see him fighting anybody else at 35. I don't know if any, there are a lot of good fighters at 35, but I don't know if anybody's worth dealing with. There's a lot of high risk, low reward fights for Tank at 35. Not to say that he doesn't beat all those guys. I think literally the only 2 guys at 35 that can beat Tank right now in this moment is Shakur and Vasily Lomachenko. So aside from that, let's say those fights go down, then it would look more so at 140. Maybe you look at that Isak Cruz rematch, because technically a lot of people like to talk about, was this your hardest fight? A lot of media made a big deal about the fact that Tank was saying that Frank Martin wasn't his hardest fight, but yeah, it wasn't. Because obviously Isak Cruz was the hardest fight because he went the distance with him and landed some good shots on Tank and made him work, regardless of the injury, the hand injury that Tank had. I don't even know the truth behind that incident. I'm not sure if some people say that he got injured in that fight, in that viral clip of him, throwing that big uppercut and Cruz, blocking it, and as a result of that, Tank hurt his hand. Maybe it was just from that, or maybe I also heard that he had that injury going into that fight and then just re-aggravated it. So whatever the case may be, I do think that in a rematch, Isak Cruz, as good as he is, doesn't beat Tank. I think Tank could probably even stop a guy like Isak Cruz, even though it's very hard, because Isak Cruz is a guy that is very much a high pressure fighter. The same way that Tank walked down Frank Martin, Isak Cruz is kind of willing to do that to Tank. So he's the one that forces Tank to fight on the back foot a little bit. So that's a good fight in my opinion. It's a good fight. It's a fight that I think inevitably needs to happen. Is it the fight I want to see over Teofimo Lopez? Of course not. But at the same time, people aren't going to let Tank off the hook. I think that he's going to have to deal with that unfinished business, if you will, with Isak Cruz. And once it goes down, obviously everybody's going to watch it. That big Mexican fan base, they all love Isak Cruz. I think they like watching Tank as well. So that's a big fight still. But I still really like that Teofimo Lopez fight over any other fight. Stylistically, I think that's the best fight. 2 counter punchers, 2 very athletic fighters, guys that have history. They're both, very much characters, and I think they'd promote the fight very well, market the fight very well. But for Lomachenko, this is basically the last hurrah. We know that Lomachenko has talked about the possibility of retirement, and the fact that, you know, even against George Kambosos, Lomachenko didn't really want to fight. He fought that fight for his dad. And when you're kind of considering retirement, that's a concern to me. That's a concern. I'm not saying that, you know, he's not going to give Tank a lot of problems. I think that him alongside Shakur Stevenson are obviously and clearly Tank's toughest opponents. But I think at this point in his career, this isn't the Lomachenko that we saw 4 or 5 years ago, not even 3 years ago. I think that version of Loma could probably give Tank a lot of problems, you know, maybe even beat him. But now it's come to a point where Tank is really good. And we like to talk about whether or not, you know, people are going to give Tank his just due for beating a guy like Lomachenko. And obviously you're going to say things like Loma's old already, and you have a point when you say that. But no matter what, people down the line, you know, they're going to say anything to discredit your win. They're going to say, this guy was old, Ryan Garcia had a rehydration clause, blah, blah, blah. But no matter what, you still can say that you beat the guy. So we want to see you against solid opposition now. You know, not to say that Frank Martin, Ryan Garcia, all these guys weren't solid. It's just that, you know, a little bit of that credit from Ryan Garcia has been taken away because of the rehydration clause. A guy like Frank Martin and Rolly Romero not really at that elite level that Loma and Shakur are at. So to fight a guy like Lomachenko, to fight a guy like Shakur, but since we're getting the Lomachenko fight, it seems, I still have to give Tank credit for that. It's better than nothing. Let's be honest. Like, it's better than you know, Tank going to fight somebody like Keyshawn Davis, where as good as Keyshawn is, and I think he's going to be a superstar, I think he's going to be a world champ, but right now it's just not the fight to make because he hasn't proven himself yet. You know, and Keyshawn, he knows that. He's aware that he still needs that Kodak win to put his name with the best lightweights in the world. Not to say that he's not already up there, but, you know, I'm talking about the elite of the elite, you know, to get his name into that conversation. But Lomachenko is already there. So to beat a guy like Lomachenko, no matter how old he is, even though he's at 36, he still looked good against Kambosos. I'm not saying it's the best version of him. I know it's not the best version of Lomachenko. Believe me, one of those fighters that, you know, I personally don't miss his fights. I feel like for me, the difference between Shakur and Tank is obviously the fan-friendly aspects of their styles. You know, you have polar opposites where a guy like Shakur Stevenson, as effective as he is, as talented as he is, a lot of people don't like to watch his style. You know, like, I'll be real. If Tank is fighting and Shakur are fighting, who am I going to watch? I'm going to watch Tank because I know that there's going to be a knockout at some point. And Shakur, sometimes I miss his fights, to be honest with you guys, because if I know Shakur is fighting, I'm like, yeah, but I kind of expect him to handle business. So that's kind of my mindset when I think about Shakur Stevenson. Like, when he's fighting, I'm like, yeah, I don't need to watch it because I kind of expect him to do his thing. You know, I don't necessarily expect a stoppage, but I expect him to handle business easily. But when it's Tank, it's like, no matter what, no matter who he's fighting, you gotta watch it because you know that crowd's gonna be going crazy. You know that he's gonna be selling a lot of pay-per-views and put on a crazy performance. He gets those stoppage wins, those exciting, you know, knockouts that a lot of fans want to see, especially those who aren't, you know, purist boxing fans. You know, I like watching Shakur Stevenson, and I'm gonna watch his fight July 6th, I believe it is. You know, I intend on being there live with the media, so that'll be a good fight to watch. But I'm just trying to realistically talk about these fights. I think that Lomachenko and Tank is a more exciting fight than Shakur and Tank, but ultimately, if we're talking about who's the best at 35, Tank is gonna have to fight a guy like Shakur Stevenson. Not even a guy like, he's going to have to fight literally Shakur Stevenson. And it is a tough fight, but it's hard for me to say. And I'm trying not to have recency bias because I know that Shakur didn't have his best performance. I'm still gonna, you know, factor in that, you know, let's assume we're gonna get the best version of Vasily Lomachenko, you know, against Tank. Tank wins that fight. I expect him to, you know, potentially stop Lomachenko. When he fights Shakur, even as good as Shakur is in his best form, you know, he could very well beat Tank, but the power is just so difficult for me to, you know, pick against. So I have to favor Tank right now. I don't know how a lot of people favor Shakur because, you know, I really do think that he has to be damn near perfect And as good as he is, 12 rounds, 3 minutes each is a long time for Tank to not land something significant. So I have to lean towards Tank, but it's a very close fight. But I think against Vasily Lomachenko, Tank should be able to handle him pretty easily. I think as good as Lomachenko is, the footwork, the angles, it's going to pose some problems early, but Tank is intelligent. He's going to pick up on the patterns and find a way to time Lomachenko and have him run into something big, and I think that's how Lomachenko gets stopped for the first time in his career. And I think it's sad because that would probably be his last fight. I think Lomachenko realistically only has 1 or 2 fights left in him, and honestly it's probably only 1 fight. And I think against Gervonta, he's going to get paid. Against Shakur, that's a good fight as well, but I just don't think he's going to get, I know for a fact he's not going to get paid as much as he would against Tank. So Lomachenko should definitely take this Tank fight. I think it'd be good for the last note of his career, and who knows, he might pull it off and upset everybody. You never know. This is boxing, so we'll see what happens. Gervonta Davis versus Lomachenko being negotiated and in talks for November and December. That'd be a great fight, so hopefully we get to see it. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments who you guys got in that one, Tank or Loma. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace. That's going to do it for another NASFight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.